Magic Monday. Apparently I'm showing my... Did you guys want an underwear shot? That's great. Happy Magic Monday. As I mentioned, we're having a special guest this week. This is my dear, dear friend, Sara Cook. She is also a yoga instructor at Nurture and at Freya. So you can find her at Freya Project and Nurture. And if you've not done one of her classes, I can't recommend it more because she is such an ass whooper, but more importantly, she just does yoga different. Like, she takes it really into a deeper space where it's not just the intrigue from the emotional state of being, but as well the physical state of being, and really understanding and showing you how to use your muscles, how to use your bones, how to change and move things so that you get the most benefit out of the yoga experience.
I like that.
Did I do that well enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to add to that?
So it's so much easier to have someone else do it, you know, like for me when I'm trying to talk about myself, I'm like, I don't know.
Right? I don't know. So the reason that Sarah's my special guest is that we're actually filming from Salida, my house in Salida, and we got on, she had a class at 8 o'clock that she streamed yesterday, and it hit me and struck me that I have really gone out of my way to not take care of myself. I've gone out of my way to avoid what actually makes me feel good. And because we've been so much on the topic of self-care and really deciding to take care of yourself, I thought, I wonder how many of you can relate to this. And even as somebody who teaches yoga and even as somebody who is also a mama, we just wanted to start that as the topic of the day, is like, what do we do for ourselves actually versus what do we do to avoid? Like, what is that ratio? So I'll have you kind of kick it off and kind of talk about your experience as a mama.
Yeah, well, just some things that have been coming up for me today, revisiting this topic, is we know about the difference in the pull between the positive emotions and the negative emotions. And the negative emotions have a stronger pull. So the numbing and the downing and the letting ourselves just feel meh, like that is easier, you know, like the tide shifts towards that. So it feels like it takes more work to go towards more lighter experiences and what I like to call nourishing experiences. But another thought I had too was just the strength of complacence. Because I feel like between you and I, we're really trying to achieve our potential. It's scary as all hell. So complacence feels like the option to that.
Like the opposite of that.
The opposite of that.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like, would we beg to say that, like, complacency or avoidance
Of
is,
the potential.
Of the potential is the safety place where we assume that we're self-caring or that we assume we're taking a break, but actually we're doing the opposite.
Right.
We're avoiding our potential.
So the inaction is an action of avoidance.
Right. Inaction is an action of avoidance. I like that. I like that, just to be right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is so funny because when I think about Willow and who you are, it's so non-complacent. You are so powerful, so inspirational, so driven, so honest, and I think it gets heavy to hold those things up.
Yeah.
It gets hard to hold those things up.
So here's what I want to say, and thank you so much. That is so nice to be seen that way. Thank you. I want to say that. I hear you. I feel that. Thank you so much. But what I think is really remarkable, so my common theme is hustle. So we're entering Sober October. Okay, so one of the things we're doing is Sober October, starting October 1st. So that would be Thursday of this week, we begin Sober October. And Sober October means a number of things. But what I've been really examining from my perspective is, where am I indulging myself and where am I neglecting myself? And my indulgence has been hustle. So like if I'm in an overconsumption of anything, it's hustle. But hustle is actually, for me, a Band-Aid effect of avoidance. So it looks like
it's a distraction.
It looks like I am really powerful and inspirational and doing all this stuff, but the truth is if you actually look underneath my hustle, you can see all the dust that I have swept under the rug. You can see all the scary bits, that I'm not revealing to myself or to anybody else. So to me, again, I go back to avoidance. Like, I did yoga with Sara yesterday for the first time since before the pandemic, you guys, since the world closed. I have not done 1 ounce of yoga. I've hiked, I've walked, I've kind of mildly taken care of myself, but I have not done anything truly physical or emotional for myself in this time period because I've been hustling.
Well, and I want to cut in on that too. I think a lot of you can relate because yoga makes us feel good. It also cracks us wide open. So it's a really vulnerable space. Like, I always joke about this relationship that we build up with our yoga mats because they catch us where we are and they allow us room to process. You know, when you open on your mat, there's any multitude of experiences that could happen. And I think that's why we avoid it. I don't want to feel tender today. That's mental. Mm-hmm. But maybe you need to process through that tenderness. Mm-hmm. I don't want to feel, you know, it's the avoidance again. Like, your mind is telling you, I don't want to because it will slow me down. It will reroute my path. It will do whatever it is that yoga is saying I need to do versus me choosing, oh, I'm just not up for it today.
Well, and I think that's interesting because that's like a really high level consciousness. My consciousness of not going to yoga is like, I mean, I'm just like a little bit tired today. Like, what I ask you guys to check in with yourself is what, and again, to this avoidance tactic and to this idea, is what I really notice is how far our ego will go to protect us from good time fun having or protect us from feeling good. So our ego's preference is complacency and is just blasé. Like, those who go to yoga every day as well, those who are showing up on their mat or those who are going to the gym every day, I also recommend you look at, is there something that you're avoiding? Is that an overindulgence or a means to avoid something else? Because we do try to lean towards this idea of balance, though I don't believe in balance. I don't think it's possible. And the way I always see balance, and I'll ask you if this resonates also, is balance is truly the breath between the breath. So it's like when you breathe in, you're not balanced, and when you breathe out, you're not balanced. But somewhere between both the inhale and exhale, that's what we're shaping our entire lives on, is that 3 seconds where we're not breathing at all.
Yeah.
Is balance.
And I think of balance, I mean, I feel similarly. It's total misnomer and something that I wish we weren't striving for all the time. So I've adapted it to mean more of like a gradient scale. My balance is this gradient scale of really feeling nourished. And I keep coming back to that word because, like you're saying, you could go to the gym every day because that's what you're supposed to do. You could be, you know, on your meal plan or committed to your practice for 30 days and complete all the challenges that are on Instagram. But at the end of the day, are you really feeling nourished?
Right.
And I think another piece that goes into that, and I'll get back to balance, but is like, do we really even know what nourished feels like?
Right.
Do we know what the ingredients to that are?
Right.
So I think, you know, checking in with the experiential results of what we're doing versus the ego, like, this is the program that I'm on and this is what I've chosen and this is what I should be doing, or I've got to hustle, I've got to make things happen. It's like that. It's definitely driven from this place versus a
what
more
do I actually
soul
need?
experience.
What do I actually need? Like, what is actually going to fill me up here if I was really honest? And it might be getting in the car and going to the yoga studio, even though at that moment that feels indulgent or that feels hard or that feels out of character or out of wallet or out of something. But like, your brain hits it and goes, I want to go to yoga. And your ego goes, well, let's look at the to-do list and all the other things that you should be doing because that might throw you off course. Mm-hmm. I think that's like that interjected voice of like, what would you actually want to do? Mm-hmm. So and the reason a lot of this came up wasn't just because I took Sarah's class yesterday, but as well, I had phoned a girlfriend who's doing a breathwork workshop, and I checked in with my intuition, as I always do, to see if it felt right. I love this woman, Alana Warlop. If you've not followed her, please do. She's amazing. So I was about to sign up for a breathwork thing, and I thought, here I am. signing up and paying for something in an attempt to nourish myself? And am I going to show up to that thing and actually feel nourished, or am I going to avoid that thing that I then paid for but feel good because I paid for that thing? Do you see where I'm going? This gets a heady little spot, but as working mamas, I feel like sometimes we think that if we pay for something, or if we
or commit to a challenge,
commit,
or sign up
again,
for
that commitment thing,
yeah,
mark it on the calendar.
Yeah, which, and this came up this weekend too, I mean, it's like we're setting ourselves up for the guilt and for the defeat over and over and over again, because it's not something that speaks to us on a soul level. So we get trapped in those shoulds again. I should be getting all of these things done. I should be doing this 30-day Instagram challenge. I should be counting my macros. I should be meditating every day. And it's like, hold on a second, because sometimes you do just need to take a beat, sleep in a couple days, and then figure out what it is you need. So just hearing you talk about that workshop is like, okay, you've done breath work before in the past. You really enjoyed it in the past. What do you really actually need now? And maybe that's not paying for the workshop, but it's stopping to breathe.
And that's the thing, is like, I have all the tools, and that's the thing, is like, I'd ask all of you to as well, like, look in the toolbox of all the classes, all the certificates, all the things, all the intellectual property that you've collected. You might be a hoarder. Like, I'm a hoarder of intellectual property and self-development and like breath work and yoga and all the things. Like, I've done all the things except for kind of the important part, which is to integrate it into my everyday life, or to integrate it into something that I do on a daily basis without having to pay somebody else to take me through it. And that's not good or bad, and some of us do need that accountability buddy, and some of us do really require a little bit more maintenance along the side. But as well, there's a part of me that's starting to go, can we exist? Can we do for ourselves? Can we begin moving forward with everything that we know about ourselves? And again, entering into this Sober October, for me, is that development of like, what doesn't need to be here? What shifts can I make? And what good ideas can I move forward? Anytime she crosses her fingers, she's got a great idea.
The ribbon that I'm tying around all of this now is that it is no wonder that you and I are the ones having this conversation, because when you're talking about intellectual property and resources, what I hear you saying needs to be done is more trusting of yourself.
Yeah.
And while your thing might be trust, my thing is enoughness. Mm-hmm. So it's all of the tools that we've gathered for ourselves, and recognizing that all of that lands us exactly where we need to be. You don't need to know anything more. You don't need to have checked any other box. It's really about dropping into the moment, however it is that you do that, with a long run, with a cup of tea, with a moment of breath work, or maybe a yoga class, and recognizing that the tools you have, everything that has led you up to this moment, is what will give you what you need in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, sobering, isn't it? We've gone a lot of places in it with this idea, really, of just self-care from the perspective of nourishment, of actualizing what you need versus what the world is shouting at you. And that's where, like, again, we're starting Sober October on Thursday, but what I want to say to everybody is it doesn't necessarily mean that we're Sober Octobering alcohol. It means that we're Sober Octobering what our habit is that has become an addiction. That we're noticing where we are not taking care of ourselves, like self-actualizing our care, where we are deciding, like, and I'll use alcohol as that example. You might get on a really great workout schedule. You might make it 4 days and be feeling so good, but that good feeling inside, your ego's like, all right, you're awesome. You should get a reward now. Let's drink a bottle of wine. And we're gonna wake up on Saturday and we're gonna feel like dirt. And now we're gonna shame ourselves, and we're gonna talk badly about ourselves, and we're gonna tear down every good thing we've done for the last 4 days. So what if we could go 30 days? And we're gonna do this together. So you're not gonna be alone on this path or this journey. We're gonna all do it together and check it in and make sure that, like, We're taking accountability for what we're up to. But what if we could go, instead of 4 days, we could go 8 days? And then once we hit 8 days, what if we could go 2 more? And what if after 10 days, we're like, oh my God, we can go 14, right? And just like progressively grow the muscle of feeling good and building that trust, building that enoughness, whatever it is that you feel like you are over consuming to get to, because we overconsume when we don't feel like we're enough.
Right.
We overconsume our to-do list, our tasks, our books, how many books we're reading, how long we're reading, you know, all those things.
Our discipline, our punishment.
Discipline,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's an overconsumption for not enough, for not trusting ourselves, for not feeling worthy. There's all those underlying tones that really are the trigger for getting us to do all the things that we do in our lives. So in Sober October, it's not a look at how many drinks you're having or what foods you're eating. It's a look at why. Why am I so motivated to hurt myself? Or why am I unmotivated to help myself?
Mm-hmm. So in that pattern, you have the opportunity for that complacence to atrophy. Mm-hmm. And I always feel like once we, and I know I'm not the genius person that came up with this concept, though I don't know who I got it from, but once we recognize the value of having something in place over what we were doing before, then it becomes a new way of life, mm-hmm. right? You know, once you recognize the value of meditating once a day, it's easier, you know, the shift that creates in your day-to-day interactions and your relationships and your perspectives and all of that. Once you yourself are able to recognize that, it implements versus, you know, doing something that you should and then not really tapping into what the value is to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go deeper on the value is to you part, because that's what we've been talking about the most. Is just, if you are, how do I want to put it? So if
they won't stick, nothing will stick if it's not truly important to you on what I call a soul level.
Right.
So you can commit to Sober October and you can give it a half-hearted try if you're really not interested in diving deep into it. And, you know, you'll get to the 14-day mark or even less than that, like you said, and you'll say, okay, I gave it a shot. But if it is something that's important to you, and that's why you shouldn't limit yourself to the alcohol aspect of this, is because you should look at what's really
the why.
The
why.
What it is that you need to uproot in order to feel more nourished. And so find something that's really important so that it matters, so that it makes a difference, so that you can really decide for yourself if it's more important to have that in place or not.
Yeah. The way I've been looking at 2020, this week in particular, is like, it feels like 2020 is an alcoholic before the alcoholic goes to rehab. And I've said this a few times, and again, if anybody's in recovery or having fully recovered, I just want to say you're my spirit animal. Congratulations, and you are my pitch for this. Because if 2020 is an alcoholic and nobody, the collective consciousness of the globe, the collective consciousness of America has all decided we're not ready for rehab, we're not ready to admit that we have a fucking problem, then we're not going to get help. So the question or the curiosity that I have for each of you is to go into your pain bank, because we don't shift usually if the pain's not great enough. If we're like, I mean, I guess I could like kind of maybe sort of like shift some things, then maybe your pain's not great enough. Maybe you're not as motivated as you need to be. And that's where we're looking at that why. What are the continuous triggers, the continuous patterns that are standing in the way of you feeling good and feeling nourished on a daily, regular basis? And is that pain that you suffer daily or weekly or every 4 days, whatever that pattern is, big enough that you're ready to just blow that shit up and call it done? Because if so, then this is going to be just like the best next 30 days of your life, right? Because you're going to sign up fully. You're going to go to rehab, if you will, for your soul and for your spirit and make that decision. But like any alcoholic, if there's not a bottom, we can make the choice before the bottom. But most people will wait, I think, until they've hit that full meltdown pain level.
Yeah. And I think it's important also to recognize that it doesn't have to be about taking things away. It doesn't have to be about quitting. It doesn't have to mean about letting go. I mean, that's an important part of the process. But like you're saying, If you were to keep every other aspect of your life the same and add a yoga class once or twice a week, massive shift. Massive shift over that course of 30 days. And then 30 days is enough time to say, if I get to yoga, when I get to yoga once or twice a week, I'm different. I'm changed.
Yeah.
I'm closer to that version of myself that I want to be showing up as, to all my intentions. I'm closer to, you know, I mean, I'm just thinking for myself, 2 regular yoga classes a week would be revolutionary.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, and we've mentioned meditation about 1,000 times. There's a whole library in this program that you guys can go to and find meditations and just sit and try them out even. There's breath work that's in that space. There's certainly lots of different options to kind of up-level your vibes as well, just to get started this week. So
Yeah.
what would be a key phrase or a key thought that you would have for anybody who's shy to going to the mat or continuously coming up with excuses to not take care of themselves? What would be one thing that you might add as a motivational last thought for somebody who's like, yes, I'm ready to change, shoot, I'm scared, or shoot, I have 100 million excuses?
Well, I know how strong-willed you are, and because it's easier for me to think from my perspective, what I come up with is accountability. And this is honestly something that I don't often do for myself, is find someone or tell someone, or even an app that will help you regulate, though I don't love the whole app idea because it's easy to, like, you know, you don't owe anything emotional or
You
personal.
can text and email me after this and tell me that you're committed and you're doing it, and I will be accountable with you.
So I'm going to be accountable to you for your yoga practice.
She does too, and it's so hard because I'm so shameful. I'm like, oh yeah, I went.
But I do think that's powerful because even if you don't get a response from them, I think the person-to-person accountability is massive. Even if I'm just going to say, all right, did my yoga class. And there's something about having to tell someone else that just makes me personally a little bit more honest. Or to know that I have someone else keeping track of it when my brain is keeping track of the 8 million things that I have to do for my life and my family and my job and my household. It's like just to get that little ping from an outside source saying, oh yeah, I got to schedule that in. And then you utilize, you know, make sure that you're checking in on your app, or a lot of meditation apps these days, you can track your progress, make sure you've done it 30 days in a row and whatnot. So I think for me, accountability. If you're looking to implement something new, accountability. If you're looking to step away from something consistently, accountability. And sometimes we can do that for ourselves and sometimes we just can't. So being really honest about where you're at, how challenging it's going to be for you to work through it, and then the faith that you will be able to as long as you give it a good, honest try.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the Alcoholic Anonymous again because they all have a sponsor. So find a sponsor. And again, it's not the person who's going to call and be like, did you make the meeting? Rather, it's the person that you can call when you're like, I don't want to make the meeting. It's the I don't want to do this, that you have that one friend or that one person who's like, I know you don't want to right now. This second might feel overwhelming, or you're tired, or you have a million reasons you don't want to, but I want to remind you how great you feel when you do it. The other one that just showed up in my brain to just share is, if anybody read Glennon Doyle's latest book, she puts really clearly in there about her depression. So when she is feeling great on her antidepressants, she writes a letter to herself reminding herself, like, you feel amazing right now, and one day you're going to get to the point where you think that you don't need to be on the medication anymore, but I left you a letter of my darkest, deepest, regrettable day when I was super depressed, and it's in this space, and I want you to remember to read that so that you have your best day and your worst day written down. And so maybe after you've gone to a class, after you've had 3 or 4 days of feeling really good, it might be a great idea to write yourself a note and put it next to the liquor cabinet or on the refrigerator or in your car when you're like, I think I'm gonna go home and sit on the couch instead of do what I really wanted to do. Maybe you have that letter or that note to yourself that says, remember how good you feel when you take care of yourself, when you are nourishing your soul and your spirit.
Yeah, and I think ritualizing it or recognizing what you're already doing. if you're someone who has moments throughout the day, or maybe a specific moment of the day that you have looked forward to, and again, you get complacent about the things that you're already doing, to take a step back and recognize those things for yourself over and over and over again. The same way that if you've been meditating every day and you just kind of lost the sense of motivation to do that, step back and think, okay, well, this is what was going on in my life beforehand. This is how things have shifted for me. This is what meditation is for me, over and over again. And I think the more we recognize what we are doing to help ourselves, the easier it is to say, okay, I'm not like 100% dirtbag. I do have some things going for me, and I know that this is just going to add gold to that pot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there it is, you guys. Magic Monday, and you guys get to get with it. So usually we do a movement at the end of every Magic Monday. For this week, we're going to do a movement with pen and paper. And what I'd ask is that you just pull out your journal and just take a little minute and jot down the patterns that you see yourself falling into. Like, how many days of joy, happiness, and feel good are you at before you pull yourself under, before you go into saboteur or sabotage mode? And what is that saboteur, and what does it look like? What's the texture of it? How does it feel? What's the expression that you use after that saboteur has shown up? What's that negative chatter? And then what would be the ideal week if you were going to keep going before saboteur? How would it feel if you didn't sabotage? And what would you like to have as your sober October sort of experience? What aspect of this would you like help with? And then if you wrote it on paper, great, you can take a picture and just email it to me, or you can just type it up and email it to me. And that way I have that in collection, and it's my honor to hold that for you. It'll be sacred to me and you. We will not be sharing this with anybody else, but that way you have that accountability here. And so I'm happy to be your sponsor. I'm sure Sarah's happy to cheer you on and have you show up in any one of her classes, as well as any of our teachers here at Nurture and Beyond. So we wish you guys lots of love, peace in, and happy Magic Monday, y'all.